I'm Terry Price. I'm the chair of the board. Happy to see some old friends and some new friends here. That's great. So introductions. If you are new to the board meetings and you want to introduce yourself, we're a small enough group that I can just call on people if you raise your hand. Judge Anthony Geip.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Anthony Geip, judge at Kent Municipal Court. Along with my colleague Drew Henke, we're the two new DMCJA reps to the ATJ board.
Welcome.
And I'll let Judge Henke introduce herself.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Judge Drew Henke, presiding judge for Tacoma Municipal Court. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you. And I see Nancy Hawkins.
Hi, Terry. Just to introduce myself, I'm not on the board. I'm a liaison between the Family Law Section and the Board of Governors, and I troll around in various meetings so I can report to my section what's going on. And so just dropped into your meeting to see what's going on.
Excellent. Welcome. So I'm sorry. Oh, I see Emily Meltzer. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm joining on behalf of Legal Counsel for Youth and Children. I'm just listening in today. Thanks.
Great. Welcome. All right. So before we go to the agenda, I did want to start out, unfortunately, and acknowledge that these are lately even more turbulent times than we're used to. There was a lot of promise to start the new year, and there's already been a lot of violence. And so I just want to acknowledge the violence that has occurred in Monterey and Half Moon Bay in California, and then the death of Tyree Nichols. And I think they're apparently going to release the video, and it's going to be a very difficult moment nationally, again, about violence. And so we have a lot of promise in the new year, but we have work to do. Turning to our minutes. So the minutes are in the materials. Is there a motion? Is there a motion from the board to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Dave moved.
I'll second.
Bryn seconds. All in favor of approving all board members in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand. Okay. It looks like it's unanimous. Anyone against? Anyone opposed? Okay.
Hi, Terry. Sorry for interrupting.
No.
I also just wanted to do a quick note just as a follow-up on the minutes. Nothing related to the vote, but just to let folks know that something that we discussed in the November meeting was the ATJ board submitting a letter in support of the proposed court rule related to right to counsel in eviction cases, and that just wanted to give everyone an update that letter of support was submitted to the Supreme Court's Rules Committee yesterday.
Thank you very much. for that. Okay. Turning over to Esperanza Borboa and the ATJ Board recruitment and priorities.
Yes, well, we will be gearing up, or we have geared up again for recruitment to the board, adding 2 new board members. This last year, we went through the process and added 4 new board members. Unfortunately, one of the board members, after accepting their job changed and they weren't going to be able to continue. So we went through a shorter process of finding a replacement, which I think we're pretty close to that. And in our next board meeting, we'll have that person in. So, but this year we'll be losing 2 board members, and we'll be replacing them. So, you know, our priorities, like last year, are that we really try to have our board reflect the people out in the community who are most impacted by the laws and decisions that are made, and to help remedy some of the issues that keep coming up over and over and over and over, impacting people's lives in often not a very positive way. And in order to address that, you need to have people who, with the lived experience, who can speak to what has worked and what hasn't, and who oftentimes have much better ideas than many of us that are within the system. So we will be sending out, we will be doing the whole thing, the whole process of putting together what is it we're looking for, getting that information out so that people can apply for those positions. And, you know, we're hoping that by summer that we'll have those decisions made, and those folks can start in October. So here we go again. It's a good process and we look forward to it. And so you'll hear more about it as we get more into it. Is that good enough, Terry? Are we good there?
We are good. I see in the chat, welcome to a number of new people who have joined us. But yes, we will be looking for 2 new board members to start October 1st. And so very excited. As the Chief Justice said in his State of the Judiciary message to the legislature a couple of weeks ago, the best decisions are made with when the most diverse voices are considered.
Yep.
And so that's what we're aiming for here. So continuing on with our agenda, paying board members for their lived experience. So Michelle, I want to turn that over to you to start that discussion.
Thank you, Terry. And that's a very good segue from the recruitment update. So I appreciate you setting that up for me, SB. Thanks. Just a quick procedural check-in. Well, I think it's my understanding that a motion's been made on this. Is that correct? Or does a motion need to be made? Do we need to have a second before we open it, before we start talking about it more? I know it's on for an action item.
I believe there needs to be a motion.
Okay.
Bryn?
I thought Bonnie had said that by virtue of the fact that the committee's proposing a recommendation under Robert's rules, that serves as the first motion, but I'm not an expert.
Bonnie.
That's my understanding of how we've done it in the past. If a work group proposes an action, that's
Okay.
motion number 1.
Okay, great.
So happy to I can definitely provide more information and give some updates on the process, but I want to make sure that we get a second before we open it up for discussion.
Second.
Esperanza seconds it. Okay.
Thank you, SB. So thank you also. Included in the materials for today's meeting was an updated memo from the board compensation work group. So just to back up a tiny bit, the Access to Justice Board had created a work group to look into paying board members for lived experience. I think part of that is deeply rooted in kind of what SB just explained when it came to the recruitment priorities. We really want to make sure that we're bringing a diversity of voices in the room, and we recognize that we're both, that people's time is valuable. That's one thing. And that also, if we're hoping to utilize the personal experiences that people have had with their being involved in the justice system or being in dealing with the inequities that are happening, we want to make sure that they're being compensated for that. And so the committee has come up with the attached proposal, and I can give a little bit of background on the proposal itself. And like the one thing I really want to make sure to stress is that this is the policy the committee thinks that the board should adopt. This is what we think is the ideal policy. We think that as the Access to Justice Board, we are in a position to try to set a good standard for what we think should be happening in the legal aid community. And so the policy that's being proposed and that's being voted on today is pending funding. The committee feels that we need to have a policy in place in order to be able to pitch this to funders. So there is an expectation that there will be additional work, additional kind of figuring out exactly how this is going to operate, and certainly finding the funding to support this policy. But we can't just take it to folks and say, we want to start paying people. How much will you give us? We need to be able to put some numbers in front of them to say, this is what we would like to do. How can you support us in doing this? And so that's why the policy is taken on the form that it has. For a quick breakdown of the numbers, the proposal is to compensate board members $9,000 per year for their participation on the Access to Justice Board. We're looking at two main things. It's a self-attestation from board members if they feel that they should be getting compensation for their time. And the things that we will be looking at are that the person has been individually impacted by the justice system, or they represent a community that's directly impacted by poverty, racism, or any other form of oppression, and that they're not participating in the board in a paid professional capacity. And so it's kind of a two-part thing that folks would be attesting to in order to be eligible to receive this compensation. The $9,000 number is based on the time that we believe that is necessary to serve on the board, and it's rooted in the rates, a standard rate for consultants. Sorry, lost the word for a second. And it's the same as what the board is paying our community advisory panel. And that number itself is based off of some research and surveying that Just Lead had done when it came to what it means to pay consultants. And I think that one thing that we really want to stress in this is that the consultant rate seems like the appropriate rate for to us. And part of that is because, as Esperanza already so nicely stated, we're trying to expand the types of people who are on the board. We are seeking them to be on the board because we want to have the benefit of what their experiences is. But we recognize that everyone that's on the board brings some sort of lived experience. But in trying to expand the reach and trying to make the board more accessible to people, we want to make sure that we're properly valuing those experiences, and that we are and that we're not taking that for granted, and we're not exploiting that somebody has had that experience. I think that the role itself, it's very similar to what CAP is doing, but it's also different because as it is wonderful that we have the community advisory panel, and I think that we, as a board, we need to continue integrating the community advisory panel into the board, but they're also an advisory panel. They don't have, they don't vote on our board. And so if we're asking someone with lived experience we're having them at the table so that they can bring those perspectives and they can be a voting member. And for those reasons, it seems like the consultant, right, is the best thing that we can tie that down to, and the best comparison that we can make. When we do recruitment, we let folks know that the expectation of the board is usually if that we're a working board, the expectation is generally 10 to 20 hours a month. And so the $9,000 a year is actually based on a minimum of 7.5 hours per month of work on the board at that rate. And that's, I believe we landed on that because we think that's really the, like with the commitments that people have to do as board members, that's really the minimum of time that people put in. I have been talking endlessly. So I don't believe that I'm not sure if Vanna was able to be here today, but I want to make sure that I give Bryn and Vanna an opportunity to add anything if they want to, and also to open it up for discussion or questions.
Thanks, Michelle. I think the only other piece I would note, which is also in the memo, but want to emphasize, is the reimbursement. Well, there's questions about whether it should be a reimbursement format versus a prospective payment methodology. And after receiving some feedback, it sounds like feedback from Bar Association staff, the reimbursement methodology is more just administratively burdensome. But second, in implementing these reimbursements, they're not always the most timely, and that in itself can create a hardship. So the suggestion was to have divided into quarterly payments, and it's upfront, so that it creates less of a hardship starting out, so people can pay for the childcare that they need coverage for, and things like that. So that was just a little bit about why we decided the lump sum upfront versus the reimbursement model. Thank you.
Fred.
I'm in favor of the idea, but not necessarily the process we're doing it. And I just raised one comment, is that I don't see why we just don't get rid of the limitation for CAP members on the board. So that's it.
Thank you. I'll just add, many of you are familiar with the Attorney General's bill last session that also created guidelines for state agencies to pay people with lived experience. So this is happening on a number of fronts. Apparently that, for whatever guidance we got, that bill doesn't apply to the Access to Justice Board. So we have to have our own policy, but I think we are all feeling this movement toward, again, diversifying voices. And if you want meaningful participation from community members on these boards and commissions, there needs to be compensation, because they are not getting compensated by their employers or otherwise funded by their employers to attend these meetings. And I also want to say, it was pointed out to me by a CAP member who I will keep anonymous, that for community members to attend these meetings is often triggering. Is often triggering to them for issues that it brings up that they have suffered through, and that we may be talking about in a more abstract way that's familiar to them. And so I think it's yet another piece to consider when we talk about compensating people with lived experience. Jordan, a member of our CAP community.
Hey folks, how's it going? Yeah, I had a couple questions. I was curious if CAP members would be eligible to join the board in October, or would they be eliminated just due to being kind of already in a paid position, as it were? And the second question, what would that 10 to 20 hours a month workload commitment look like in an ongoing capacity?
I'll address the first one. There's no limitation on anyone applying to be on the Access to Justice Board. Those applications will go out, not the applications, but the request for applications will go out. I think they go out like April-ish. Yes,
Yeah.
I see Bonnie shaking her head. Yes. So there's no restriction on anyone applying to be on the board. In terms of the workload, Michelle or Bryn, did you want to answer that?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead, Bryn. You can do it.
Sure. So when we initially calculated, the 7.5 hours, as Michelle noted, that's times when we absolutely know that we're going to have to carve out time for meetings, meetings like this, meetings of the board and work sessions, and the additional up to 20 hours is board members are expected to act as liaisons on other committees. I myself am on the technology committee and help chair the LAFCO committee. And then also as projects come up, we often have ad hoc committees to plan events that are less formalized but come and go. And so really this is acknowledging that there's so much more time involved and invested than just the time we set aside to have the meetings where the body convenes together.
Hey, okay, thank you.
Thank you. SB.
Yeah, let's see, just real quick, this is a paradigm shift that's been happening for a little while. It hasn't been a long time, but it's a shift. And I think that what we're looking at is a recognition for what people bring to the table. And it's, and also that this expertise that has not always been valued or validated. It's been expected, like reach out to the community and can you guys attend this meeting? And people attend the meeting on top of everything else they're doing. And they still have to figure, I know I used to have to try to figure out, my kids went to these meetings with me because I didn't have daycare, and I couldn't afford it. So it's recognizing that expertise that person brings, that the rest of the folks that have been meeting all along don't bring that expertise. Yet we've had this weird thing going on where we know that the professionals are recognized as professionals in their field, but the community folks aren't recognized as professionals in the expertise of knowing what's going on in their community and how the structures impact those communities and what it might take to change that. So we have a better chance of having solutions that can actually create change rather than having the same thing happen over and over and over again. So that, hopefully some of you that are younger right now aren't going to be doing this 40 years from now and having the same conversation 40 years from 20, 30, 40 years from now. It'll be a much more positive conversation. So this is a really exciting process to go through, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, SB. Fred.
I have a sort of different view of it, is that I think what's really important about having some sort of compensation, it's necessary for recruitment because of years of whatever, the people we serve may not have the same financial ability to serve. I think that when we talk about recognizing expertise, I think that's it. I think when we're selecting somebody to be on the board, whether they're a lawyer or a judge or retired from someplace else, or they have community experience, we're recognizing their expertise, and we should continue to do that. But I think this is a recruitment position, is that no one on the board is paid to be on the board. Terry, working at the University of Washington, the University of Washington doesn't pay him more money to be here. It's not, being on the board is recognition of somebody's expertise, whether it's lived experience or professional experience. But we have to face the fact that it's easier for someone like me, who's developed a pension plan in the system and has the assets to do it, that I can volunteer my time. So I think this is a recruitment tool. I think it's an important recruitment tool. We need to pay people that don't have resources or the ability or the flexibility in their job to be able to be here. So again, I think recognizing is not the issue, because whoever we put on the board, we're recognizing their expertise. But we have to recognize that we have a recruitment issue. That's my thought.
Thank you, Fred. Other comments before we vote? Jordan.
Yeah, just to reinforce Fred and Terry's earlier point, I was one of the community members in 2020 that Governor Inslee appointed to the task force for independent investigation of police use of force. It was a totally free position. We weren't compensated for it, and we weren't the members. We weren't looking for it. But what I noticed is that it made us political targets and social targets in our own communities in a very tumultuous and divided time as it was already. And I didn't really think about all that. I just knew that it was more of a sense of duty, and I didn't realize the social capital and the professional capital that it was costing me during that time. But it was a worthy cause. The law was passed. We're going to have the first Office of Independent Investigation. So it was profit and loss, so to speak, type of exchange. It's going to benefit, I believe, the state of Washington and the nation in the future to come. But on a personal level, I know that many of us were affected mentally, socially, and professionally for putting our voices out there and putting our time into it. But I just to add and reinforce what Fred and Terry were making a point to, it builds some of that compensation allows us to build some kind of financial resilience when facing these issues. So just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that. All right. Any other comments before we vote on this?
I think, Terry, I just want to make sure to add one more thing, which is kind of in line with some of the comments that we've gotten already, which is like the questions about like whether CAP can be on the board, and just quick thing on the board makeup. There's the board is 10 people, and there's the requirement that we do have one position that's a non-lawyer position. And the board, and it's not limited to one, but there does have to be at least one. And the board has, for the prior recruitment session and for going forward, based on SB's presentation, we really are focusing on how do we bring in, how do we diversify the people that we're hearing from? How do we bring on people with lived experience? So to Fred's point, this is a recruitment tool. We do have a recruitment issue, and there are so many reasons why folks who are not in the legal profession, right? Like I can take work time to come to these meetings. I'm not necessarily, and so I have the flexibility to do that during the workday as a legal professional, but not everybody has that flexibility, especially people who are going to be non-attorneys whose experience we want to hear from, and we want their feedback and input.
Thank you, Michelle. And it's an interesting day to do this when we talk about who has flexibility at work, since at 11 o'clock, my own boss is showing up, Dean Tamara Lawson from the University of Washington, to talk about her vision for the law school. So I do want to make a comment that the board also has made it an intentional focus to do more of these conversations in the public session. So maybe in the past, we might have had this vote in the working session, executive session, and that we didn't share this kind of discussion with the greater community. But we definitely believed about this one and going forward about many more of these discussions being as part of the public session, so that there can be this greater discussion among our community partners and in front of our community partners. So I think the board is, oh, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things here.
Sure.
One of the reasons that I joined Access to Justice Board was to really identify what were the barriers to access. And what I'm hearing from community members is that money, finance, being able to be present and to share their experience is important. And I think we just really need to hold that up and really understand that some of us who are able to have privilege, financial, economic privilege, to be able to volunteer our time, to be able to take work off, to be able to participate in these meetings, it is a privilege. And we also have to think about it from a different perspective for others who don't have that opportunity to do so. And I think that this is an important part of why we are here, is to really identify what those barriers are and how to bring people into the access to justice. And if this means that we really start to shift our priorities to be able to allow for others to be part of this board, then I think this is the way that we should move forward with. And I agree, there are lots of other issues that but I think it's about how do we bring this values and bring the voice to this board and to help us come to a greater consensus and decision in the long run.
Thank you. All right. I think we are ready to vote. So Access to Justice Board members, those in favor of this policy, put your thumbs up or hands up. 1, 2. I see Fred. Okay. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? All right, the motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you, Bryn and Michelle and Vanna, for all your work on this proposal. Great. All right, so now we have a update from the Equal Justice Coalition. I see Alex is here.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I have a couple of quick updates for you on the EJC's work this session and a request for support. So this session, we are asking the state legislature to maintain its commitment to basic civil legal aid by fully funding OCLA's biennial budget request. In particular, we're asking the legislature to fund basic civil legal aid services, including a vendor rate adjustment. OCLA's budget request for basic civil legal aid and the vendor rate adjustment is vital to protecting existing client service capacity. And failure to fund this request will result in a reduction of clients served by legal providers across the state. So here's our request. We need your help to communicate this message to our legislators. So if you have a personal relationship with any of the state senators or state representatives who represent your district, please let me know. I have a formal way of collecting this information, which I'll share a link in the chat if I'm able to, and I'll send out an email to this group after this meeting with a link to that form. So please fill that out, and I'll reach out to you to see ways that we can coordinate on that and kind of figure out a way that we can get you to set up meetings or messages that you can send out to your legislatures to kind of help us with that messaging. Another fun update that I can kind of add is that we are planning our trip to DC at the end of March for the ABA lobby days. And we're planning to meet with our Washington state delegation. We'll be taking a team of 8 people, including myself, Caitlin, Cesar Torres, Care Masters, Sean Davis, Bill Pickett, Angel Tomeo Sam, and John McKay. So we're really looking forward to this trip. And hopefully we'll have some exciting updates for you afterwards. I think that's all I have for you today. So look out for that email with the link, and I'll also put it in the chat. And I'll also include a one-pager that we'll be using for the state legislature this session. So yeah, I think that's all I have for you today. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Questions for Alex? I have a question. So legislators that we have personal relationships with, do we have legislative champions for these issues?
That's what we're trying to kind of find. So that's part of the goal in sending out the surveys. We kind of want to figure out who has these personal connections, and then figure out who we can kind of point out as champions. And yeah, that's kind of the point of doing this.
I guess I thought that Senator Ann Rivers in the past has been a legislative champion of this. I can't remember who.
Oh, of the budget.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, we're working with our lobbyists to kind of figure that out right now. But that's something that we'll set up a meeting with our stakeholders to kind of go over in the next couple of weeks.
Great, thank you. Questions for Alex about either this Washington or the other Washington? I don't see any. Okay, thank you, Alex. I do not see Cesar here. I don't think he's here. Jim is not here, but Rochelle Davis is here. Welcome. I don't know if you were intending to talk about funding reports.
Hi there. Hi, Terry, and hi ATJ board members. My name is Rochelle Davis, and I'm the new Director of Operations at OCLA. And we do not have any reports for this month for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Caitlin. I see Caitlin's hand now.
Oh, is it my hand or is it my little circle where my head should be?
It's now a circle where you're
that's just a complication of my technology issues, but I'm happy to jump in if the time is right for me to give a brief update from LFW.
Please do.
Okay, a couple exciting things to report. I just want to remind everyone that the Goldmark Luncheon is Friday, February 17th. It's the first time we're able to get the band back together in person, although there is a remote option. We hope if you're healthy and able and brave that you'll be able to join us at the Westin. And if you want to register, just go to our website at legalfoundation.org and you can click on a link and you can either sign up to sit at the table of one of the people listed under the thing, or I think there's an option also to sit me at a fun table. So whatever your pleasure is, we're happy to honor Michelle Storms, longtime or the executive director and longtime equal justice advocate with the ACLU of Washington. So that's going to be a great event, and we're really excited about it and hope you'll be there to join us. Couple of internal things. I'm happy to announce that the Legal Foundation of Washington Board is expanding from 9 to 11 members. The two new positions are, similar, are going to be held by members from community-based organizations who have lived experience with poverty and racism, and we think that their perspective is just going to add so much to all of the work we do at LFW. I'm not quite ready to say who the new board members are because we just have to, finalize a couple things, but hopefully they'll be in place next month. One thing that we've been talking about internally and also with our grantees is that 2023 is going to be a really important year, critical in terms of a lot of decisions that are made that will impact the Alliance. IOLTA revenue is pretty high due to increased interest rates, and our board and in particular our finance committee are thinking a lot about how to maximize what we have available this year and next year, and sort of midterm into the future. But there's some other key questions that we'll have to answer, such as we implemented a pilot project a couple years ago of making 2-year grant commitments instead of 1-year grant commitments. And while we think that's a best practice under our sort of equitable grant making framework that we've been working off of, looking to make sure that we can sustain that and afford that. And should it be a longer timeline? Should we go back to 1 year? What can we do? As Al
Caitlin, suddenly you're muted.
Sorry. A lot will depend on, as Alex said, if the legislature approves the vendor rate adjustment. The Equal Justice Coalition supports the whole package of funding requests that the Office of Civil Legal Aid has before the legislature. But the one in particular that we're watching very carefully is the vendor rate adjustment, which will allow for baseline increases, minimal increases, not only to Northwest Justice Project, but to all of the programs who are eligible to, who receive state funding through our funding partnership between Legal Foundation, Office of Civil Legal Aid, and Northwest Justice Project. So, there's a couple of factors that will impact upcoming grants, and what our grantees and what the Alliance can expect is ongoing and frequent communications from us, inviting input and opportunities to participate in our priority setting process as we sort of plan for this exciting year of critical financial decisions. So yeah, I think that's the update from LFW. And if there is a minute for questions, I'd love it if anyone has any.
There is certainly a minute for questions. Questions for Caitlin. I have a simple administrative question about the goal mark.
Yeah, okay.
So I have shamelessly sent out my name as a table captain.
Oh.
And some other people online I see here are table captains.
Oh, good.
How do we know when our table is full?
We will be, hi, sorry to jump in here, Caitlin.
No, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melinda. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the foundation, and we will be getting in touch with you, Terry, with a list of everybody who's registered for your table. So you'll know where the gaps are. We're going to be sending that out early next week.
Super.
And then also know that if you overfill your table, we love that. That's a great problem to have. And
yeah,
we just sort of merge tables together and make these really fun groups. So we love that too.
Thank you, Melinda. Judge Geib.
Hey, Melinda, thank you for the link in the chat. But when I went to the link, it didn't give anything for any ability to actually register. And I'd love to join Terry's table.
Okay, you got it. We will make that happen.
Well, but let's get a link that works.
Yeah, I'm chatting behind the scenes with Alex, and here's another link. it's unfortunately, it's a place you have to click on the invitation. So we're trying to fix that, but Emily just dropped in. I love this LFW team. We all get together. We can make it happen. Why don't you try that link? Thank you.
The giants of technology that we are.
It takes 6 of us to.
That's the new link work. Excellent. And for in full disclosure, as a completely confused day one starting law school, I met Judge Kipe, then just known as Anthony.
Anthony.
Anthony at the old Condon Hall, and he has been my mentor ever since. So that would be lovely.
You were talking about Judge Guy
Kind of you
here?
to say, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Kind of you to say.
20-something years ago.
The best known judge and artist in the Alliance, I would say. A man of many hats.
That's right. Melinda, did you want to add more about the campaign?
Yes, I do have just a couple quick updates. Thank you so much, Terry. But before we go, we do have that beautiful, one of your beautiful pieces of art, Anthony, in our office. And I frequently want to take a photo of that and make it my permanent backdrop. I love it. So I just want to say thank you for that. Yeah, just 3 quick things. And Caitlin already touched on one of them. But, you know, we are always out there in the campaign talking about the importance of unrestricted fundraising that can be used for communities excluded from government funding. And we met the campaign fundraising goal last year, raising $2 million. Thanks to all of you for your support through so many different ways. We held a dozen events around the state. We added Cowlitz Wakayakum to the mix. So we're really trying to take equal justice on the road to all the communities where there's volunteer lawyer programs as well. The King and Pierce County law firm campaigns continue to be the backbone of our fundraising efforts, and the partnership with WISDA with the dues checkoff. That is just a great donor acquisition effort. Great way to reach the legal community. One very exciting development, which I think Natalia has talked about before here, is the growth of our associates campaign. As a fundraiser, we're always looking for new ways to bring younger attorneys into this mix, and this has proved to be a really powerful way to do that. Now we've got some great ideas about how to get into the AG's office if possible, and the corporate legal shops with the same type of efforts. Secondly, we've had wonderful interviews to replace Natalia as the annual campaign director, and we're hoping to have someone on within the next few weeks. So we're really excited about that. New leadership, new ideas. There's a lot of opportunity to expand this fundraising effort. And then lastly, yes, we hope to see you all at the Goldmark. We're very excited to honor Michelle Storms and to hear from Twyla Carter from the New York Legal Aid Society, who also has ties here to the legal community. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Caitlin. Were you just waving? Any questions for the LFW team? Very exciting. So I can't remember if I mentioned this, but because of the Goldmark, next month the Access to Justice Board will be meeting that morning before the luncheon, and we will be meeting in person or some version of hybrid. So because then we're going to walk on over to the luncheon. So we have a few minutes before Dean Tamara Lawson joins us. She'll be joining around 11. So why don't we reverse order and take any announcements now? Any other announcements?
Carrie, can you just go ahead and announce about the ATJ conference later this year?
Sure. The Access to Justice Conference, and I think it's on we're going to put it on everything that we send out. The dates are September 28th to 30th at the Tacoma Convention Center. It will be in person and some bit hybrid. We are still working out what the some bit hybrid means. It's not going to be a full online conference like last time. And so some presentations will lend themselves more to an online format. Think of like the plenary sessions. Some like panel discussions don't lend themselves well to a hybrid format. So we're still working that out. SB and is the co-chair of the Access to Justice Conference committee, along with Janae Ball, who is an attorney in private practice in Spokane. What the call for proposals is going to go out roughly in the next month. Is that?
Yes, in the next few weeks, it should be out. So people will be getting that. Please help us. We want to get that out far and wide so that we have a diverse lineup of presenters and issues for this conference that are relevant to the community and to the broader community and the legal community. So we will need your help to get that out there. We have lists, but we don't have all the lists. So help us out.
Great. Other announcements that people have?
Terry, this is Nick.
Hi, Nick, who is the chair of the conference fundraising committee.
Yes, so I thought this was a great time, since everyone
This
is captive audience, to mention that we're also kicking up our fundraising efforts. And if any of you have any connections with anyone who wants to donate, all the money is going to be going to help support scholarships and financial support for the individuals that would try to come to the conference, but otherwise might not be able to afford to do so. So given the discussion earlier, it seems like a great time, but it's always in my mind a great time to hit people up for money. So just wanted to put that plug out there. At the next, well, we can circulate to the ATJ board, but at the next ATJ board meeting, I'll try to bring a document or send a link to folks that shows who we need to still reach out to that we haven't reached out to yet. We have various folks on the ATJ conference fundraising committee and also the ATJ conference committee that are working on this, but we can never have enough. So don't hesitate to contact me, Laura, Janae, Bonnie, anybody. If you have any info or have some leads on a connection to somebody that might want to, or a firm or any entity that would want to donate.
Great, thank you. And you can always email Bonnie and she can forward it to the committee. Judge Geip.
Well, it's not strictly in my role as DMCJA liaison, and I know that Esperanza is also on the Minority and Justice Commission. The Minority and Justice Commission is teaming up with the national version of the commission for a seminar, and it's being held in Seattle this year, May 20th to 24th. It'll be a national presentation on keeping the promise of justice, and will also coincide with the Supreme Court's annual symposium on the topic. So it'll be held in Seattle at the Motif Hotel is the venue, and you should be getting formal announcements circulating to everyone for participation. It'll be approved for both COE and hopefully JCE credits for people who want to attend the different seminars. It's going to be great. I've been on the curriculum committee and I'm on one of the other planning committees, and it should be a great venue. And it showcases the fact that Washington's been a leader in this field since it started almost 30 years ago, with only 4 Supreme Court justices, including one of Washington, CZ Smith, helped start the national version. And now it includes 38 Supreme Courts and commissions from around the states. So it'll be a really good presentation, a lot to be said. So keep your eyes out for it. And please, if you can attend, please attend.
Thank you.
Just an update, Judge Geip, I'm not on that committee anymore. I'm not the representative for the board. It's Michael Chin from our board.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Esperanza.
I just wanted to make sure we knew that.
Thank you.
Other announcements that people have?
Can I ask something? If
Please.
there's events that you have coming up, would be helpful. This is a good place right now to kind of tell us so we could put them on our calendars. Like I just got an email from, NERP sends out their newsletter and they've got their gala coming up on April the 20th. So, I'll stick that in my calendar. So, and kind of holding the date. So if you have anything like that to help us hold dates, because everybody gets so busy. And a lot of times these events happen around the same time. And so it would be helpful. So if any of you have anything like that, it would be helpful to know that as soon as possible.
Thank you. Diana.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that note, we also try and track all the events that people share on the Alliance for Equal Justice website. So if you post anything on the ATJ community listserv, we take that information and put it on. And if you're not on the listserv, let us know. Or if you don't want to be in the listserv and you want it posted, let us know. But we're hoping that that's a place that people can put their information. And speaking of events, I was just going to share that the Bar Association, they do a monthly legal lunchbox at the last Tuesday of every month, a free CLE. And the February one, which will be sent out right after the January one, which is next Tuesday, will be focused on building inclusion with our communities. And so we'll be featuring Tony Gonzalez from CLS, Debbie Espinosa from, I'm forgetting Debbie's organization, Living with Conviction, and Sandy Restrepo from Collectiva. So we'll share that information as soon as it's available if folks want to join that free CLE.
Thank you for that. Welcome, Cesar Torres.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
I hate to put you on the spot when you've just logged on, but are there funding updates that you wanted to share with us or any announcements?
Yes. I wasn't sure where we were on the agenda. I'm sorry I couldn't join earlier. As far as the federal funding update status, we after a very problematic federal budget last year, which caused us some pretty severe distress at NJP. This year, the funding result was good. It was something we had hoped for and had projected last year. NJP actually received $1 million more than we had budgeted for. We were being very conservative given what happened last year, and that's really good for a number of reasons. It really can't restore us or try to turn the clock back to the changes from last year. What we have is a situation where we're going to hold the course right now. We are budgeted to have 340 FTEs around the state, which is a reduction from where we started last year. And on the first day back from work, I notified staff of the federal funding result and also shared with them that the fact is that we are not going to adjust. We're not going to hire people as a result of this. We need these funds for a variety of contingencies. One of which is that we're looking at, we don't know what's going to happen with the session. I know that folks are working very hard on it, and we hope all the results come through as desired. But there are some significant issues, including the fact that the VOCA program is being drastically scaled back as a result of federal funding issues. And if the state legislature does not create a whole new state-funded Victims of Crime Act, we're looking at a reduction of about $1 million or more just in our VOCA program. And it does include not only other legal aid programs, but the entire network of social services for domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims and children who are victims of crime and so on. So there's a big push in the legislature for that. And Again, should that not succeed, we have a problem right away come July. And sadly, we're already seeing that people with that level of uncertainty already, we're having some folks starting to look for other work, and we're going to be losing focus staff until that's resolved somehow. And we won't know that until April or May. So it's a difficulty. And assuming that everything goes well, we do, I hate to say this, but we're already very much thinking and planning for what happens in January of 2024, because we have a divided Congress. And between now and then, there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans happening at the congressional level. And we're going to maybe not be receiving, and maybe even having some reductions on the federal side, which would mean that we need to have some resources to account for that, and also deal with and meet our obligations under our collective bargaining agreement and so on. So we're staying put, notwithstanding this increase, and that just gave you a little flavor of the factors that we're considering as we look at this next 12 months. I assume others have reported on the state and so on. So lots of good stuff going on at the state level, and we have our knock on wood. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Yes, people have been reporting on this state level. I love the use of the word shenanigans in the other Washington. That's one word for it. So let's hope that they can
get our way through that.
Yeah, power their
Yeah.
way through that. Exactly. There were a couple of other announcements that I wanted to make. The first is that the National Equal Justice Coalition conference is going to be in Dallas. I don't know why Texas. I really don't. May 2nd and 3rd, I believe, in Dallas. And so some folks may be going to that. There has been a renewed set of meetings, or actually a new set of meetings, with Access to Justice chairs and the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Trump administration, if there had been an Access to Justice office during the Obama administration, it was done away with by the Trump administration, but it is now reinvigorated with the Biden administration. And so there is a renewed kind of connection between the national ATJ chairs and the Department of Justice. A lot of discussion the other day about the lack of data that on the state level, on the national level, how data drives funding decisions, and how the states have better or not as robust data collecting mechanisms. It's difficult for us here in Washington because our data comes from a non-unified court system, and so AOC doesn't have all the data. And the ATJ Tech Committee has had a discussion about this, has numerous discussions about this. But it's interesting to hear it on a national level. And to circle back to what Alex was talking about ABA days, that the number one thing that the judge from the ATJ Commission in Texas wanted to know was about ABA days, because they really rely on that money, the federal money, because I can imagine they have a lot of restrictions in their state money. So that's coming up. I see Hui has put in that the Benefit Law Center's Spring Into Action event will be held Friday, March 31st at Optimism Brewery. And there's a link. Thank you, Hui. And here, unless there are any other announcements, we can turn to our guest, Dean Tamara Lawson from the University of Washington Law School. I may have an entire, not a huge page, but a page of introductory remarks. Good morning, Dean Lawson.
Good morning. It's so nice to be with you this morning, even virtually. And thank you, Professor Price, for that warm welcome.
Oh, I have more that I can say about you.
Oh, well, you don't need to.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
I would just like to say
Okay, go ahead.
that two things. One is that she is a writer. Dean Lawson is a writer on race and gender and the law. And in preparation for her presentation, I read her most recent article, Awakening the American Jury, Did the Killing of George Floyd Alter Juror Deliberations Forever? About whether or not there was a tipping point with jurors in terms of police brutality cases. And then also that Dean Lawson, in addition to being the dean, the Tony Ramby Dean and Professor of Law at the University of Washington, is involved in many national organizations, legal educator organizations. And she, earlier this month, received the Clyde Ferguson Award for Excellence in Service, Teaching, and Scholarship from the American Association of Law Schools. So it is a pleasure to have Dean Lawson, who, as I said before you came, is also my boss.
Thank you, Professor Price. And again, it's my pleasure to be here with you all. And I think it's even more exciting because the mission, values, and work of the University of Washington so deeply align with the work of this committee and this organization. I'm here just to highlight a few of those most recent updates, but also to reassure the commitment of the University of Washington School of Law in continuing to collaborate and improve our impact. You know, that is part of our core mission, to be the best law school in the world, measured by global impact. And that we are truly approaching this from a global perspective when it comes to equity and fairness, including all of our centers, our Asian Law Center, our Native American Law Center, our JD students, our LLM students, our PhD students, and all of our scholars within the law school. And we are actively seeking other scholars to join us. We have a new junior colleague that will be joining us in criminal law, who is interdisciplinary. That's another area that we are leaning in on, because for the future, that is how our students need to be trained in order to make the impact that we believe they really need to make in the world. We're also hoping to bring in a senior scholar in health law, which will lean into the strength of our university in the medical field and the health law policy field, but also in the area of disability rights, which is a true DEI concern and is something that is, I guess the word to say would be heating up if anyone's following the news around the California bar exam. These issues about disability rights and access and accommodations are very ripe for us to discuss from an equity and social justice lens. We are very proud of another staff member that's joined us, Elizabeth Baldwin, and I'm sure some of you might know her work in the community. She's been very committed to nonprofit endeavors and projects, but she is now our new director for the Gates Fellows Program, which we're so proud of, and we think is one of the impact to justice initiatives in which we lead the nation, and we're hoping to expand on additional projects like that. And what I mean by that is, the Gates Fellows come in with basically a full ride, and the financial support that those fellows receive is really a game changer in allowing true access to the profession. And I've been working with our admissions team and also our fundraising advancement team that we will be able to add in the near future additional full ride scholarships. Is our position that The financial barriers are the largest barriers to the profession, even though we will be discussing, and I value additional input on the admissions process and the entrance exam process. Currently, the American Bar Association has voted to allow law schools to maybe leave the LSAT or provide alternative ways of determining whether a student is eligible, qualified, capable of completing a JD degree and passing the bar exam. This issue is going for final decision before the ABA Board of Delegates on February 6th, but the section on legal education has already voted to allow law schools to decide whether or not they will have a valid entrance exam, valid and reliable entrance exam, which is the current standard now, that every law school is required to have a valid and reliable entrance exam. And the amendment is that a law school may have a valid and reliable entrance exam. And that would take effect in 2 years under its, if it passed as currently drafted. But that opens another discussion and opportunity of how we would identify and determine which students would be the best students for our law school and the best students or graduates for the profession. With the current bar exam, that's still a very difficult road to analyze, because whatever we might think about standardized tests, at the end of our law school journey, there is another standardized test. So we have to factor that in. But there is movement afoot in that area as well, as you might be aware. And I discussed in my first weeks as dean with the Washington State Supreme Court en banc, the justices, about the future of the bar exam or the access to the profession, alternative pathways to licensure. We will see movement in Oregon, likely. We've already seen some movement in Virginia, and in that they allow now students to take the full bar exam but prior to graduation. Some scholars believe this is improvement and a way to break down some of the financial barriers to access to the profession, that you're still taking the final bar exam while you have your loans from school and your housing from school loans, et cetera, as opposed to having to take on new debt and new loans. We have made some headway on diversity scholarships from corporate entities, and we are using that template to get more of those. So again, like I was saying, we are trying to move the needle as it relates to support for students, increasing our scholarship offerings, not only for law school, but for the bar exam as well. And one of our top priorities is 100% bar passage. We are close to that, but close is not sufficient, particularly when you analyze there's not equity maybe on who is not hitting the target on time. And so that is a priority, and a priority meaning that we are going to provide support, academic support, financial support, other things earlier and often. Another dynamic of the pandemic is that we have a class that will be graduating soon that have never taken an exam in person. Shockingly, right? They've never had to sit down and focus and take an exam without their comforts of their living room or wherever they choose to work. So we are at a hard push with the student body, and I'm happy to report our professor Carrie Sanford is leading the charge on bar preparation, and we have a simulated bar exam this Saturday. We have over 100 students signed up, and we're pushing for more because we want them to feel the physicality, the mental exercise, all those things of a long test, so they can start to really internalize and get prepared and be ready for game day, the real test in the summer. That's a dynamic that, because we're on a trimester system, we've been navigating for a long time, the timing of graduation, the timing of the bar exam. But as I told the team, this is not a surprise. We know these dates, so we just need to prepare in a different way to be agile and ready to navigate and succeed at that exam. We're so proud of our global impact, our foreign lawyers, our foreign students that are coming in large numbers. Our graduate programs are growing. We have 7 LLM programs. And, you know, I just want to say I'm happy to be here. I'm thrilled to be in this community. I'm grateful for the warm welcome by so many people here. I shared with everyone that when you get to Mara Lawson, you get an engaged leader. I've been at a lot of events, and I will continue to be present and attentive to the needs of the community, and that includes outside the law school. So I'm so grateful for your work, and please call on me. Please assign me to projects you think that are appropriate, and I'm happy to help. Thank you for giving me some airtime in your meeting.
Thank you very much, Dean Lawson. Are there questions for Dean Lawson?
Professor Price, I just wanted to add one other thing.
Sure.
U.S. News and World Reports. No, I'm sure no one's heard of it, but there has been movement among law schools and now medical schools around that issue. I just wanted to update the group that this is a national conversation, and fortunately, the University of Washington is at the forefront of leadership of this national conversation. And I've been invited by Harvard and Yale Law School to participate in a symposium they're having on March 1st around this issue, about rankings, about data, and how to best provide information as well as recruit a diverse student body. So if you have thoughts around that, I'll be preparing my remarks in the next few weeks. So I'm happy to hear any input as we move forward to a better solution for students.
Thank you for adding that. It looked to me, Cesar, were you going to say something?
No, I
No.
did not. I got off mute for other reasons, but wonderful. Thank you so much, Dean Lawson. It's great to see you again, and definitely look forward to your participation with the Access to Justice community.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you too.
Any questions for Dean Lawson? I am not seeing any.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, well, we covered announcements. Are there any final announcements for today? Seeing none, as Francis used to say, I'm giving you back 11 minutes in your day. So thank you all for being here. Great to see you. And we'll see you in person at the Goldmark next month on the 17th. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, Terry, do you have a minute?